How's it going, you guys? So in this video, I just want to give some of my thoughts and my opinions on the recent Joe Rogan podcast between Kresser and James Wilks. So James Wilks looked extremely triggered the entire time. He was extremely upset, and I understand his frustration because, he's a combat instructor, he's not a scientist, he's not a movie producer, so he's not used to that type of criticism. And of course, Joe Rogan and Kresser spent an entire 3-hour podcast just breaking apart the Game Changers movie. And so since James Wilks was the producer of that movie, I can understand that he was extremely upset. Well, with that being said, the way that he handled the entire debate is not very intelligent, it's not civil, it's not adult-like. And if his goal was to prove his points, he did a horrible job of doing so to the audience. So if his job was to convince and persuade Joe Rogan's audience that, about his position and his points, his attitude ruined that for him. First of all, Kresser is a acupuncturist, or his degree was in acupuncture. One of my best friends actually is a Chinese medicine doctor. He has a graduate's degree in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, really. I personally don't follow Chinese medicine. I did back in 2014 when I first started my health journey and my research, but ever since veganism failed me, I learned about nutrition science and realized that it's a much easier way of explaining things than Chinese medicine. So the reason I bring that up is because the entire podcast, James Wilks just kept repeating, "I'm a combat instructor, not a nutrition expert," and Kresser is an acupuncturist. He is not a nutrition expert. And that just was so irrelevant. Chris Kresser is very well versed in science, at least well versed enough to be able to discuss it between them two. And James Wilks claimed in the Game Changers movie, "I spent over 1,000 hours in 6 months," which is impossible, by the way, studying nutrition research. So if you spent over 1,000 hours studying nutrition research, then you should be able to discuss that research that you did, that's the science, with someone like Kresser without resorting to name calling, ad hominem attacks, appeal to authority the entire time. He kept saying, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the University of Harvard, blah, blah, blah. The general consensus, the scientific consensus. Well, Kresser, you're not in alignment with the scientific consensus. The scientific consensus is what you should be repeating, It's damn, if everyone just repeated the scientific consensus over and over again, like James Wilks wants people to do, then science will never progress. That's actually not what science is. That's anti-science. Science is about asking questions, about questioning and observing the natural world through experimentation and observation. Science is not repeat the same findings over and over again, or validate the same findings over and over again without questioning them, and just appeal to authority. And that's the facts, because the consensus says so. Anyway, James Wilks actually, as far as I know, lied about interviewing Rob Wolf and Lauren Cordain, the founders of the paleo movement, at about the 1 hour and 53-minute mark, somewhere around there. And he said, because basically Kresser was explaining that, I think James Wilks was talking about human nutrition and evolution, trying to say that we're herbivores. And it was a very, very short point. And then he said, he said that Kresser's idea that human beings have been eating meat for millions of years is not in alignment with the general consensus. James Wilks, author of the Game Changers, said basically that most anthropologists agree human beings were herbivores. That's basically what he was inferring. He was inferring that we ate a plant-based diet through most of our evolution. So we weren't killing woolly mammoths and large game animals. We didn't hunt those animals into extinction. Okay? According to James Wilks, that's a scientific consensus. All those animals in those museums that they claim human beings killed and hunted to extinction, that wasn't humans. According to James Wilks, stone tools and all that was for peeling potatoes. And then, to make his point, he said, we even interviewed Rob Wolf and Lauren Cordain, and we didn't include them in the film because their expert staff laughed in their faces. And then I messaged Rob Wolf about this, and I said, hey, James Wilks claims that he interviewed you and Lauren Cordain at about an hour and 53 minutes into the podcast, and he said that they didn't include you in the Game Changers movie because they laughed in your faces. And then James Wilks said, Rob Wolf replied and said, that's interesting. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. So I don't know if like the pea protein world order might have wiped his memory bank so that Rob Wolf doesn't go around telling all of his meat guru friends the secrets of the pea protein. Maybe the pea protein world order wiped Rob's memory clean so that he can't tell the world where their headquarters is located. You know, who knows, right? Like maybe that's why Rob Wolf can't remember. Or maybe James Wilks is just really desperate and decided to pull a stupid choice and lie on such a large platform, like assuming no one's going to tell Rob Wolf. Like, what the hell? And you know, the big thing here is that, you know, a stupid lie like that is easily verified. All that James Wilks has to do is find the emails or the text messages of them meeting up and post them publicly to prove that he's not a liar. So I'll be on the lookout for that, but I'm willing to bet that that he's manipulating the evidence here, or manipulating the audience by saying something so foolish. And the really funny thing is, vegan people who see that, they're just going to believe it. Like, oh yeah, of course. Why would a plant-based documentary invite Lauren Cordain and fucking Rob Wolf to be on it? Why would Rob Wolf or Lauren Cordain agree to be on the Game Changers movie? Especially when the Game Changers movie was trying to paint this narrative that human beings were mostly herbivores. Lauren Cordain and Rob Wolf, and the other thing is, we invited Rob Wolf and Lauren Cordain onto our podcast, onto our Game Changers movie, but they believed that, you know, humans ate meat for millions of years, and our staff believed that they ate plants, so we didn't include them. Anyone who knows who the fuck Rob Wolf or Lauren Cordain is should already know, hey, they're going to promote the fact that humans have been eating meat for millions of years. They're like, to say that, we invited them on expecting their beliefs to be aligned with the plant-based anthropologists is fucking stupid. So if they actually did invite him on to be interviewed for the Game Changers movie, and Rob Wolf just is like trying to pretend that didn't happen, that would surprise the fuck out of me. But I'm willing to bet that does not make sense at all, and that was just a pathetic attempt at manipulation. Sorry guys, my cat's on my lap, so it's like distracting me. But our cat's vegans too? Oh, that would be crazy, right? A lion should eat a plant-based diet because the suffering and death of animals is so horrible. We should go and get the lions on a plant-based diet. Anyway, they spent the entire first hour arguing semantics, like this small point about Chris Kresser claiming that that there's according to one meta-analysis, that Chris was willing to talk about. He had all this evidence he could have talked about, but James Wilks just would not stop arguing about such a stupid thing. 83% there's like 83% of people in the meta-analysis showed no risk of cancer, no higher risk of cancer, no significant change in regards to dairy consumption and prostate cancer. And they just argued the whole entire first hour about that. Then they spent another hour arguing about whether cows are supplementing B12 or not. And then the whole time James Wilks was like, right, Joe Rogan? Right, Joe Rogan? Like, right? I'm right, aren't I? How am I doing defending my film? Am I doing good? And he was just like, oh yeah, look, this is what Chris Kresser always does. Chris is a manipulative liar. Chris is an acupuncturist, not a nutrition expert, blah, blah, blah. Look, guys, if we got Chris Masterjohn onto the podcast, he's a PhD in nutrition, he'd fuck Wilks up. He'd fuck up Wilks and any other scientist they brought on. And they would come to the same conclusion Chris did. Chris it does promote like a primarily plant-based diet with animal products, pretty much. The other thing here is that Chris Kresser is a clinician. It's a fact, okay? And he does practice in a functional medicine clinic. And functional medicine, the only difference between functional medicine and mainstream medicine is that functional medicine actually cares about getting to the root problem of people's illnesses. People who talk crap about functional medicine are ignorant. They're ignorant. They don't have a clue about, nutrition science or health. And it's just dumb. In fact, Caldwell Esselstyn, like Dean Ornish, these people who use plant-based diets to reverse coronary artery disease, and they use statins, that's functional medicine. That's what it's combining nutrition and lifestyle, as well as modern medicine, in some cases, to produce the best results in patients who need these types of treatments. People are ignorant. Like, mainstream medicine uses functional medicine approaches all the time. It's just in functional medicine clinics, that's the norm. That's the default. So, anyway, and then, most of the comments on that podcast were talking about how just James Wilks just ruined it, and they can't watch more than like 10 minutes of it. And then some vegans are trying to discredit Chris Kresser, saying he's a chiropractor. He's not a chiropractor, he's an acupuncturist. And acupuncture is actually scientifically validated for pain, for relieving pain, for relaxation, and digestive issues, I believe, is another one. Certain problems, certain health conditions, actually, there are scientifically validated benefits to acupuncture. And he's much more than just an acupuncturist. Have you ever read his book? Obviously not, because, it doesn't fit your bias. Your Personal Paleo Code by Chris Kresser. The thing is, he has an entire book about personalizing nutrition and lifestyle for the individual. Okay? Chris Kresser is not about just promoting like one idea, like, eat a meat diet. He's about, hey, he's a clinician. Anyone who works in a clinical setting and has any kind of success, even Rob Wolf, he sits on the board of directors for a functional medicine clinic. And everything Rob Wolf talks about, his books and things, his book, Wired to Eat, is all about finding your own personal carbohydrate tolerance and what foods work better for you. And presents tests to try to figure that out. His whole work, all of his work is about personalized nutrition. When you work with people in a clinical setting, you better be flexible enough to find what's going to work for the individual. You can't just say, hey, eat a plant-based diet, boom. No, that's the reason why so many people speak out about vegan diets being bad, is because so many people have had problems with them. And not everyone just did it wrong, myself included. I supplemented and everything. I just had food intolerances, probably from small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is something Chris Kresser talks about. He could help people, because he's not an advocate of the carnivore diet. If you have trouble digesting certain foods, he can help them, which can help them become plant-based if they wanted to. And so this whole like constant like belittling of Chris Kresser was just unnecessary, and it was foolish. You know, and Chris Kresser's entire approach is what's going to work for the individual. And, you know, the main problem with the Game Changers movie, it's not that it promotes a plant-based diet. It's that it promotes this idea that meat will give you cancer, meat will ruin your dick. Like, really. And, you know, the list goes on. It's the anti-meat bullshit that doesn't actually add up in the real world, and that's the big thing. And there were many studies, many points that needed to be discussed in that podcast that did not get discussed. For example, mTOR in cancer, and iron in cancer, and then he kept saying meat causes oxidative damage, and vegetables have antioxidants that repair that damage. Look, oxidation is not just purely bad. Okay, so you have to oxidize carbohydrates to burn. That's burning carbohydrates. So does that mean that all carbohydrates are oxidants? No. Both meat and vegetables have compounds that produce antioxidants. Meat gives your body the raw materials it needs, like cysteine and methionine, and B12, B6, and folate, as well as choline, to actually produce glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant. And all of these plant compounds, all that they do is help boost glutathione production anyway. So it's a much more complicated process than just, oh, you eat meat and it oxidizes. Like, you know, it creates oxidative damage. Fuck out of here. Exercise creates oxidative damage. But you know what? Your body fights it off and becomes stronger. Oxidizing fat loss, fat oxidation. That's an oxidant, yes, but it also produces positive health markers. So, yeah, someone like Chris Masterjohn, you know, if you just look through, if you can even understand the antioxidation process, watch Chris Masterjohn's master course, goes in depth into the antioxidant system. You'll understand why this motherfucker is just plain foolish, bringing up all this nonsense about meat. It's a pro-oxidant, blah, blah, blah. Then you have to ask yourself, how come all these carnivore dieters, they get tested for their oxidative markers, and they find 0 C-reactive protein, and their markers are 0 on all these oxidative markers, all these markers of low antioxidant status and these things. And then there are studies that actually deprive people of plant foods, and they find greater antioxidant status and lower status of oxidative stress. What the hell? Or what the health, right? So getting someone like Paul Saladino on the Joe Rogan podcast to talk about this would be a great idea. I personally don't promote a carnivore diet, but I think the carnivore diet poses a lot of great questions to help, you know, clarify that it's not the meat that's the problem, okay? Anyway, this is just a dumbass podcast. They basically, poked a shady-ass comment at Rob Wolf and Lauren Cordain. Lots and lots of crap to digest and dissect there. And they only brought up 3 points. They brought up protein digestibility. They brought up, one study, one meta-analysis on dairy causing prostate cancer. And then, B12 in cows. They didn't really get very far. It wasn't really a productive podcast. James Wilks, I'm glad he got a chance to defend his fucking documentary or whatever, but he should never be in a discussion like this again. I don't know, honestly, I hate to just overgeneralize and be like, oh, that's vegan malnutrition that made him act that way. But, I mean, he was worse than Vegan Gains in Vegan Gains' old debates. Maybe not that bad. It was bad. It was just dumb. So, let me know what you guys think about the about the debate or whatever the hell. Let me know what you guys think about all this. And by the way, he made Chris Kresser look like a bitch after the 2-hour mark. And I think part of it is that Chris Kresser just gave up because it's just no use in talking to someone like that. But I think the other thing is that Chris Kresser did kind of miss a lot of points. He actually was kind of wrong on a lot of things. He didn't really have any rebuttals to the protein thing. Didn't have any rebuttals on the cows being fed B12 supplements. And they were kind of stupid points on James Wilks' part anyway, but still. It seemed like Chris Kresser might have been wrong on a lot of things. And so James Wilks kind of like exposed him at that point. But at the same time, you have to wonder if maybe Chris Kresser just gave up, right? So I don't know, honestly. And most people aren't going to watch the entire podcast because of how fucked up James Wilks was for most of that time. I really want to see Chris Masterjohn on there breaking down all the points, or at least making a response video to it. I want to see Paul Saladino on the Joe Rogan podcast. I want to see a podcast where Paul Saladino breaks down all the science to clear some crap up, because a lot of people are going to be switching to a mostly meat diet after watching Paul Saladino. Again, I don't follow a carnivore diet these days. I don't promote that, but it's important that people study it, okay? And it's important people study vegan diets too. Ignorance is what's causing all this crap to go on. So, yeah, let me know your opinions, please. Please let me know your opinions on that podcast. Talk to you guys later.